ready?
Sure.
What do you think? We good?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Hey everyone, Shauna Brinley, bringing you someone that's super special to me in my life. I'm super excited he decided to join us for this whole journey we're on. This is one of my dearest friend, Isaac Wheeler. He and I met in 2006, I think is what we determined. We were in a networking group together, and from there just kind of flourished into a friendship that has kind of lasted, the test of time type thing. He has moved to lots of places. I have followed him in the journey there, and I'm so glad he's back home, at least for a while, and able to spend some time with us. We are not super socially distanced. We actually, through the quarantine, have spent a lot of time together. He and I are both trying to be just really safe when we're out and about.
Sure.
And so we have opted to not be socially distanced because we know we've been good in all of our other places. So here we are. Tonight's topic's going to be one of those that is sometimes a little hard to talk about. As all of the topics that we kind of are touching, some of them have stigmas around them. And so really being able to touch on some of those negative things and get past the negative is really kind of a goal of this whole podcast video cast. And so this is one of those subjects tonight. So we're just going to kind of see how it goes. Hopefully everybody gets something out of it and find some positivity when we're all done. So take it away. Let's talk about tonight. We're going to talk about HIV and what that means, kind of how you have to manage it, what's gone on with it, but try to take the stigma of what it is along the way out for you all and give you some resources. So give us your background. Tell us where this all kind of started.
All right. So I am a child of the 90s, most definitely. From age 11 to 19, I knew I was gay. Came out to my parents in a more conservative religious family. My dad laughed and walked out of the room. My mom cried and said I was going to hell. But over time, they have softened up and their views have broadened. In the 90s, HIV was pretty, still kind of scary, from the 80s with the Ryan White and everything like that to the 90s. Yeah, they had antiretrovirals, but they were very hard on the body and stuff like that. And so HIV was still very highly stigmatized in the 90s. And as I got older, we practiced safe sex, we used condoms, stuff like that. But as I got older, I think we got more lax, and I know I got more lax.
Yeah. The environment in general got a little more lax in sex world, I think, altogether.
Yeah, I would
really?
Agree. Yeah. Heterosexual, homosexual.
It doesn't matter.
Bisexual, whatever.
Yeah.
It got more relaxed.
Yes, and it probably shouldn't have, but...
Right, exactly. So in 2012, I was diagnosed with HIV. And I can trace it back to when I was in California in 2011, working, and had met up with a couple of individuals, but this one in particular, I was able to contact everybody after I was diagnosed.
Okay.
And this one individual would not respond back. Everybody else did. Everybody else went and got tested and were negative, and this one individual never responded back. And so I'm 99.9% sure that this individual was the one. What was disheartening for two things. One, I do remember asking that question. Have you been tested? Do you have anything? Have you been tested? And him saying, yes, I get tested regularly, and no, I don't have anything. So either he didn't know, or he out and out lied. So
do you feel like that is why he didn't answer you, because he all of a sudden had the scare himself?
That's very possible.
Okay.
That's more than possible. But the other thing that I think was disheartening for myself is I remember approaching the house that he was in the valley, and there was something in my gut that said something's not right. Even though I haven't met him, nothing. But something in my gut, and that's when I wish I had probably paid a little bit more attention, thinking with the wrong head.
Yes.
So,
Yep.
So yeah, so it was November of 2011 or early December 2011 because we met up twice, and then 2012. Well, in Christmas of 2011, I was back here in Springfield.
Okay.
Visiting my parents and family for Christmas for the holidays, and I had a really funny rash on my legs, lower legs, but I've been working at 24-hour fitness out in California, and gyms are good places to catch
all
weird
kinds of things
because because everybody's skin is so I just I remember saying something to my mom about it, and then saying if I still have it in 3 weeks, I'll go see a doctor. And I don't know why I chose 3 weeks, but it went away. No big deal. And then I had gotten strep throat in April of 2012, and I hadn't been tested for 6 months. I had tested before I went to California, and I knew I was negative before I went to California because I had a test just before I went. And so it was about April, and so it's time to, every 6 months. And so I went ahead and I was tested, and they didn't call me back right away like they normally do. So I called them, and they're like, we'll call you back. And somebody called, and then that's when they told me. And I remember being in the office, actually, when they told me I was able to go to a private place in the office and sit down and listen to this doctor tell me over the phone, which I was kind of surprised. Most of the time they make you come in person and stuff like that. And, honestly, I wasn't surprised. That in a sense, it's my scarlet letter that I carry now. Yep. That just came to me the other day when we were thinking about doing all this. Yeah. And, I was a little reckless and irresponsible. But the good thing is the doctor said that, go to Uptown Physicians Group in Dallas. They'll take good care of you. And so I did. I hadn't had a regular doctor in Dallas yet, so this was a good time to establish one. Perfect. And side note, by the way, the strep throat had nothing to do with HIV.
Just that was happened to be the timing thing.
Right. It was actually a good trigger to go get tested. Yeah. So I went in and they took all of my blood. They take 8 vials of blood every time they take blood from me. And that's every 3 to 4 months that I do that. Yeah. So they took the blood, and my doctor was more worried about my borderline blood pressure, elevated blood pressure, than he was my HIV. And which made me pause. I was like, wait.
Yeah.
You're more worried about my blood pressure, and HIV is not a big thing to you. Not really.
Because I'm pretty sure my blood pressure is high because I now just found out I have HIV.
Right, exactly. So exactly. So I do, he got me kind of started on the blood pressure medication, and we would come back to the HIV medication. But I definitely had it. They tested me again just to make sure. They did a strain test to see which strain, to make sure that I didn't have any resistance to any of the drugs that are out there, and I didn't. I started out on a tripla, which is a 1 pill a day. Okay. With 3 different drugs, and then progressed to Jimvoya and Biktarvy. As the newer things came out, my doctor kept kind of moving me up, and so the Biktarvy is what I take now. I've been undetectable. Well, let's back up because I'm getting a little far here. So when I was diagnosed, I was blessed to have my friend James, who was living with me because he had broken up with his boyfriend, and his boyfriend had broken up with him, and I had the extra bedroom. I was like, I'm traveling all the time. Come stay with me. $500. We'll call it good. And he did, and thankfully he was on the board for Lone Star Ride of Texas, which was an AIDS organization.
Wow.
So he was very, very knowledgeable about everything relating to HIV and AIDS and treatments and stuff like that.
Did he have it himself?
No.
Okay.
No, not at all.
Okay.
He was on their board. He's an attorney. He was on their board and very active with them. And he knew to get me out, to keep me. He was the blessing that was sent to keep me from going into a downward depression. Because otherwise I could have.
Oh, very easily.
Very quickly.
Yeah.
And you know, today, fortunately, there are groups out there, and back then there were groups too, but there are groups out there to go to. I personally have not gone to any of those groups because I've had a very strong friendship around me and the ability to talk openly. Although I didn't tell you until just this year.
We may have to address that.
But the friends and the few friends that needed to know in Dallas at the time, they knew, and they did a great job of making sure that I was okay. And that is key. That is like having that strong relationship around with your friends and people that you can trust. I remember my mom's birthday is May 15th. And I remember my next trip back to Springfield was for her birthday weekend. And we were doing family pictures with my brother and nephews and everything. And I remember having a really hard debate on whether, with myself, whether do I tell my parents. And I chose not to tell my parents until just recently after I told my dad, and we'll get to that. But and I chose not to tell them because my mom had her own health issues that were pretty serious, and I'm her son, her first, and I want her to focus on her to make sure that she was okay rather than focusing on me. And when I was doing this debate, this will be hard because I'm going to cry.
It's okay.
In the Jeep, I had gotten in.
Take your time.
A voice that cannot be explained. I said, I have a plan for this.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll never forget that.
Yeah, that's powerful, for sure.
I have a plan for this. I have a plan for this. Like a voice I had never heard before, never heard again.
Yeah.
And so I chose not to tell my parents, which was tough. Because I'm really close to my mom and dad. Even though my mom cried and said I was going to hell for being gay, and my dad laughed and walked out of the room, I still was close to them. Yeah. And then I'm still their son, their first. And so chose not to say anything. And I think looking back, that was probably the okay. Either way, I think it would have been okay. But again, it was hard not to tell them, because they knew everything. They knew everything about almost everything. And so anyway, so didn't tell them, but like I said, friends and who were close were able to support, and I continued on, and I started taking Tripla in August of 2012, and by November of 2012, which I thought was kind of appropriate because it would have been a year ago, I was fully undetectable.
Okay.
Now, meaning when you take my blood, the testing equipment can only get down to 20 copies. Anything below that per milliliter of blood. Anything below that it can't detect. And so the medication today is able to, in a sense, you won't hear it a lot. It's a functional cure in a sense because it keeps me from going to AIDS. Like, not everybody who has HIV gets AIDS.
Yeah.
AIDS is when your immune system is so compromised and so depleted, your CD4 count is so low, which I think it's like 200, I think is when AIDS is diagnosed. The normal range is 500 to 1500, and I've always been above 1,000. So,
awesome.
Even when I had it, I was above 1,000, and I was doing really well at. My body was fighting it really well, so I thank Dad and for his family genetics because they all seem to be bulls on that side of the family.
It's wonderful.
It comes in handy. But then after I started taking the medication, I remember the count going down, and I was freaking out. I was asking my doctor, and he's like, "It's all right. You're still normal. Your body's purging some of those cells that were infected.
Okay.
So this is natural. If it continues on, several months, then we'll look at it. Well, it didn't. It went right back up.
Awesome.
Which is great. The unfortunate thing about HIV is the hidden reservoirs, whether it's in the brain or in the liver, areas where you can't get the medication to, is why they can't completely rid the body of it yet. They're working on a complete cure. Yeah. They're not to that point. I think we'll see a functional cure where I don't have to take anything, where it would actually be an injection.
Okay.
Maybe once a year or something, but stop taking a daily pill. And a daily pill is an easy thing to do. One pill, compared to my predecessors that were taking, multiple pills a day, I can't imagine. And so, so let's fast forward. I'm undetectable. It's now 2020.
Yep.
We're coming up on 8 years. Well, 8 years this month of being undetectable. I had thought in my mind that I would tell my parents after 10 years, only because my parents were in their 20s and 30s in the 80s and 90s, and they would remember
the big stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
AIDS usually sets in within 10 years and you're gone.
Okay.
And if I could tell them I'm fine.
I've made it.
Exactly. Yeah. I've made it, and then I would do it. The unfortunate thing is my mom passed away unexpectedly this last July. And I kind of lingered on whether to say anything to my dad. And because my dad and I were getting involved in, he was capitalizing a business for me, and I wanted to be completely transparent in his investment. And I told him, and he was, well, it was harder than saying Joey's my boyfriend when I came out.
Yeah.
It was a lot harder. And when I told him, the first two questions, one, are you okay? And after I told him I was okay, and then number two, why didn't you tell us earlier? And I reiterated, hey, mom had her deal with her lungs and her breathing
and major health issues. These weren't like small things.
Right.
So your mom was
she had a lung
stuff.
Transplant in 2014.
Yeah. And she was dealing with big stuff.
Exactly. So it wasn't just like a little headache here and
small
there.
Potatoes.
Right. Or had the flu in the winter. Yeah. It was real deal, full on lung transplant, in 2014 and rocking it out all the way to the end.
100%.
Right.
Yeah.
So I feel liberated. I wouldn't have talked about this, and I probably wouldn't have told you. Well, no, I still would have told you. But I do feel more liberated. The fact that my dad knows. I haven't said anything to my brother yet. And And I'm not worried about that.
Oh, okay.
He finds out. Thanksgiving's around the corner. I can always mention it.
Okay, got it.
So
a little quick passing by.
The likelihood of him actually seeing this is very small.
And that's probably true. So, yeah.
But anyway, yeah. I mean, the interesting thing about having HIV today compared to back then is that the great thing is the fact that the technology has come so far in medicine. The unfortunate thing is for people who are not aware, there's still the stigma around it, and it can be it can be really difficult. I've only had, out of all of my friends and dating and stuff like that, I have only had one or two people that have actually like said no thanks, or when I did come out, or when I did find out that I had it, all of my, I hate saying that, but all my sexual partners I had in the last few months, from the time that I was negative to the time, there was only one, and we hadn't even had sex. That was the funny thing.
Isn't that funny?
But yet these guys who I had actually had sex and unprotected, they were like, okay, all right, I'll go get tested. It's no big deal. And praise God, they all came back negative. To the best of my knowledge, I have not given it to anybody. That was my number one. I don't want to give this to anybody. I remember after I was diagnosed thinking, I'm toxic. I can't do anything with anyone, and that's absolutely not true.
Well, I think probably that is the most responsible thing you could say is, my goal is to just not give it to anyone. Like, that's the responsible human side. And I mean, yay for you for thinking that way, because I'm not sure everyone does.
Right.
Some people just go, okay, well, I'm taking a med, I don't really care, and probably don't even tell people. They just move on.
Oh no. Anybody that I have encountered since that time, that's one of the first things.
Yeah.
Hey, I want to be 100% transparent with you on this. Yeah. I have HIV. I'm undetectable. Have been. I'm more than happy to show you my test results, the most recent, the history, if you want to see the history. Nobody has ever wanted to see that, by the way. But
so how often do you have to get tested now?
I see my doctor in Dallas, and the only reason why I go to Dallas is because that's where I lived. And I still go back there, even though technically I live in DC and I'm here in Springfield and stuff like that. But
and moving to all these places.
to Ohio. And once I get settled in Ohio, I may switch. But I really like my doctor in Dallas, and so I have an opportunity to see my friends when I go back. Yeah. So I mean, it works out. So I see him now we're up to 4 months. Cool. Every 4 months, and that's, like I said, they draw out 8 vials of blood. It's
like donating every time you go.
Almost, yeah. I don't get a cookie though.
Dang. We should ask them to change that for you.
No kidding.
So, do you feel like there's a generational difference in what people think about it?
Oh, certainly. Certainly. The older, I'm at the tail end of X. The older generations or the older fellow Xers they remember those AIDS days. Yeah. When we didn't know what it was. People were dying left and right in New York and San Francisco, and it was only a gay thing, right? Which it's not today. It's not, and the advertising that I'm not sure who was doing it, but it was I'm the face of HIV, and it was, yes, it was gay men or men who had sex with men, but it was also young kids and mothers and older women and stuff like that. It certainly knows no boundaries, right? Just like COVID knows no boundaries. Yeah. HIV is the same way. Fortunately, HIV is only sexually transmitted or intravenous drug transmission.
Right. You hear that in the drug community. The spread of it through dirty needles or reusing stuff is prominent. And that doesn't matter your sexuality at all. Right. It's strictly, I used the wrong needle or whatever.
But back to your question, yes, the older Xers definitely, because they remember the AIDS days.
Yeah.
The millennials and Gen Z are much more open most of the time, or rather than taking a stance of I don't want anything to do with it. Well, they're willing to learn and ask questions.
Okay. Were you surprised by your dad's reaction?
Yes.
I know his dad enough I was surprised by his dad's reaction.
Yeah, I wasn't sure, again, that kind of that scarlet leather aspect of, you now have proof that your son has done irresponsible things. And so
we all have.
Well, right.
Even your parents probably.
Probably.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, that was my thought, and that's why, and again, that was another reason for not telling my parents.
Yeah.
Is the fact that, hey, your baby messed up.
So then why didn't you tell me? I feel like this has to be out there.
Okay.
Bring it on.
Because, and I think I mentioned this to you when I did, but just so that the viewers know, you were too close to my parents.
Yep.
I didn't want you to know something that you felt like you had to keep from them.
Yeah.
And so I thought it better not to tell you as much as I wanted to tell you. There were many times I wanted to tell you.
Yeah.
But you're too close to my parents. And so.
Yeah. So his parents, we got close. Actually, your mom's transplant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They've been clients of mine for a while, but when his mom went into kind of her transplant state, I handled their finances. I made sure that they were taken care of because they went to St. Louis. They had to vacate Springfield so that she could be with the right people, the right team, and for an extended period of time. So I really got, I think, closer to them during that time. His mom has actually called me her daughter multiple times. And so from all your friends here in Springfield, I probably saw them the most frequently.
Oh, sure.
Talked to them the most frequently. So although my feelings were hurt when I found out, I did understand why. Because I think I was taken aback a little bit like, wow, we're really not as good friends as I thought we were. That's where I went.
No.
Was more
not,
like.
That was not. That was not it at all. You should know better than that. You should know better.
It's fine. So what kind of things would you tell people, like places to go or resources? Like where would you direct people that are kind of fighting this situation now?
Right. So when it comes to the science, to the where's technology going, and the emotional, a great website, and this was also referred to me by my doctor, was thebody.com.
Okay.
And then aidsmap.com is also another good one. But I mean, Googling anything, you know how much Googling I did after, I of course I like to really get in and read analyze and where are we at and what are we doing and stuff like that. So so I did a lot of Googling, but for understanding what the resources are, and a good starting point is the body and aidsmap.com.
You mentioned having your support system.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't know the situation anybody's in for maybe someone just found out they have AIDS. If they don't have a support system, do you recommend a counselor? Do you recommend them, where do you recommend them finding some sort of support system? You mentioned kind of support groups or something. Is that what you would suggest? Yeah. Yes.
Not everybody's not into that whole let's go to a support group. Right. Exactly. I do know here in Springfield that there are a few of them because of other friends that are involved in them or help set them up. Just like was it AIDS Project of the Ozarks? Yeah. Yes. Is a good starting resource for here in Springfield. To be able to connect to community activities and outreach for you to be taken care of. And they also do a really good job of for those people who can't afford the antiretrovirals. If you don't have insurance, you're talking $3,000-$4,000 a month. Wow. for the medication, and for one pill. I mean,
That's
one
intense.
pill with 3. You're paying for technology, is what you're paying for.
Right. The research and development.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
The materials themselves are pretty inexpensive. It's
Yeah.
all the R&D that went into making that
Yeah.
pill. But AIDS Project of the Ozarks definitely goes forward with helping people who are lower income or don't have insurance or stuff like that.
I should write that one down. AIDS Project.
You know, and a lot of the health departments are, in fact, in Dallas, the Dallas County Health Department was on top of me, just like that. And
really?
they're like, you know, look, if you can't afford your medication, let us know. We have resources and stuff like that. So the health departments are, you know,
wow.
I'm not sure that they're all as proactive as Dallas County was, because Dallas has a rather large gay population,
right.
as well as medical treatment. And so there's a lot of HIV positive people, whether they're gay or straight or
right.
bisexual, pansexual, whatever.
Right.
So yeah, reaching out to the health departments are also a good one if you're not here in Springfield. So.
Well, and I would say, just in talking to you about this, as I have found out about it and been able to ask questions now and understand it more, not being afraid to talk about it, whether it's a friend, a roommate. You mentioned, you know, your roommate, which just happened to be kind of the perfect situation for that to happen.
Yeah.
Finding random people that are just willing to even listen to you. I think at some point you have to get past the scared to tell people. You have to actually start healing.
And don't let the shame overtake you.
Yeah.
Because there will be, I mean, I had it.
It's probably normal to have that.
Yeah. I mean, you know, again, like I said, I'm toxic. I felt like, you know, and I could not do anything. Like,
right.
You know, lest I spread the disease, which is a little over the top. But yeah, you know, just don't let the shame overtake you, and be willing to, at least to somebody. And you know, I've had a counselor in the past, even though I haven't talked about this with a counselor. I've had a counselor for other issues, and that ability to have a third party not in your life connected any other way.
Yes.
Is huge, and you can feel like you can drop your mask in the walls and
right,
and be who you are. So
we talked about my counselor last night. Like I would tell anyone she saved my sanity when I came out of my situation, because I think anyone that goes through any type of trauma, finding out you have HIV, it was traumatic.
Oh, it was.
I think you go through this insane part. All of a sudden, your world is chaotic. Nothing feels controlled all of a sudden. And like you said, you felt toxic. You are suddenly there going, now what? What do I do? I don't understand it. I'm the worst person.
Right. And
that person, you know, my counselor saved my sanity through that chaos. So I think any subject I probably talk about on this podcast, the counselor thing, I mean, and that by itself has a stigma. You know, you go to a counselor, you got problems. Well, you know what? You should have seen the problems I would have had if I didn't go to a counselor. I mean, truly.
Right.
So I recommend one to anyone for any situation. I assume in the HIV world, there's probably counselors that either have it or have researched it and understand it enough that can coach people through.
Oh, absolutely. On the body.com, a couple of the doctors that actually do some of the blogging and writing of articles and stuff like that, they have HIV. They've been researching and studying HIV. Some of the counselors do have HIV. I mean, and sometimes that helps in terms of being able to relate to somebody. Yeah. I certainly, when I meet somebody else who is HIV positive or POS undetectable, we start comparing story. What are you on? What are you? What kind of experiences are you having? In fact, earlier before we sat down, I was mentioning another friend having some similar other health external health issues from HIV. For me, it was the kidney potential. It looks like my kidneys are not performing in I don't feel like they're not performing, but the creatinine levels are artificially high, and we're trying to figure out why. Right. Because other tests have shown that my kidneys are functioning fine, appropriately,
normal.
Right. So, and this particular friend is also having similar experiences, and the so sharing that information back and forth with each other is always helpful.
What are you finding out, being in the COVID society we're in right now? How does that affect you? Knowing you have HIV, do you have some immunocompromised to some degree? Could be minimal. Are you nervous about that? Are they talking about that at all?
No, because my immune system, at least for myself,
right,
my immune system is so strong. Again, thanks, Dad, for the genetics.
Yes, wonderful.
And I don't worry about that. I think with COVID, we've seen where even some of the healthiest people,
right,
that you would think have no issues at all, would blow through COVID,
right,
like without anything, are completely removed from this world because of COVID.
Well, and you've seen people that, they give you the high risk category and they fit every category and they get a little runny nose and then it's gone. And you're like, how? I don't understand. It by itself is such a weird thing right now, right, because there's so much unknown. We had it in this household and ours was mild, thank God. But I had encountered my husband's dad and he's on like that entire high risk category. You read it off, he's on it. And I had a mental breakdown saying, I just killed your dad.
Right.
And he didn't get a single symptom. I mean, nothing. Right. And I'm like, how? Right. And so that whole thing is just crazy, which is why we're starting this project, is to take some of the crazy out of the world for a while. Okay. So what do you feel like you want people to know or to understand, in general about all of this? U
equals U. Undetectable equals untransmittable.
Okay.
And they have, researchers have done tests and studies on hundreds, at least tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of people, because they did it worldwide over a very long period of time, walking through undetectable individuals and their sexual partners and seeing if it was ever transmitted. And they've come to the conclusion, 99.99% sure, 95, something like that, that undetectable, being undetectable as I am myself, based on that one pill that I take a day, religiously.
Right, yeah.
You can't miss it.
Uh-huh.
But U equals U. Undetectable equals untransmittable. And so it's not like it was in the 80s. I mean, yes, you still should use precaution.
Yeah.
You should still be safe. One of my heterosexual friends his wife does take PrEP, which is 2 of the drugs to just protect herself, even though so they can have unprotected sex,
right,
without any concern, even though he is undetectable and taking his 1 pill a day religiously.
Yeah.
But yeah, U equals U, and that's been going around for the last couple of years now.
Yeah. Since
those studies came out.
So I feel like one other thing that I'm taking from this is, someone who doesn't have it, I should not be scared of it. And I think when you get into personal relationships, if you don't know enough about it, you're a little like,
oh, absolutely. I mean,
and so I wish people from the other side that don't have it would understand it's not something to be scared of. Now, it is a discussion you have if you're going to be intimate with someone that has it.
Sure.
It sounds like, in that situation, she opted to take some meds too. Personal choice, I think, in their situation. But if you are in the dating world right now and you come across it, that doesn't mean you have to be scared of it. Right. Ask some more questions, understand it some more. Right. But it really isn't like the end all of a relationship.
No, actually, antibiotic resistant gonorrhea and syphilis are more of an issue right now for the sexually transmitted diseases versus HIV. HIV has gone down in the transmission again back to U equals U, it has, really blunted the transmission of HIV in the United States, and developed countries are able to get those medications.
Yeah.
So,
which is amazing. The world of medicine and kind of all these things that it brings as we go on year after year. I mean, I look at a lot of conditions and say, man, 20 years ago, they had it way worse than they have now. Surgeries like that. I mean, all the new stuff. So for us to live in a society that is able to have that ongoing research and to improve it, I mean, lucky us, really.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
I think that's amazing. Anything else you feel like you want to cover before we finish this interview?
I don't think so. I'm sure I'll leave and I'll go, hey, I should have said that, or I should have said that. Yeah. But
well, I mean, there's comments on the video. You can always do a little comment. We'll, of course, when we post it on Facebook and Instagram, we'll probably tag you so you can do whatever comments you want to do on it. I've walked away from the other interview that I've done so far, and I was like, oh, I should have asked. And so it's the same on this side of the table as well. So I am so glad everybody joined us for this episode. It is definitely one of those topics that is sometimes hard to talk about, and we're really wanting to break that barrier. I really appreciate Isaac for coming and joining us, and
Absolutely.
Really for being just this amazing person in my life as well. We have an amazing relationship that allows for honesty and openness, although you held this from me, typically. So I really appreciate that. Also, if you enjoyed what you heard, we are asking that you just subscribe to our YouTube. You can like our Facebook page, follow us on Instagram. That's all under Change the Perspective. You can also email us at support@changetheperspective.com. Really, we're looking for people that want to tell their story. It doesn't matter the topic. If you think you have a story that people need to hear or they can get some good positivity out of it, we would love to hear from you. Just reach out, let us know. We're setting up interviews as we go. We're super excited about what we have kind of on the docket already. I mean, the variety of people that have come forward is going in such a crazy direction. I'm just super happy that we're having such a good mix. So if you're one of those people, please, please, please like our page, reach out. We're super excited about what this is going to do. And I just encourage you to continue on this journey with us as we kind of discover some new things and break some barriers along the way and bring some positivity to the world that we're living in, the crazy 2020. So everyone have a great week, and we'll see you all later. Bye.
Bye.